Actually, I just saw a movie last night in theaters, and I know this is going to be really, really late because this movie has already been out in the States for quite a while, about a month, and has just been out in the UK for about a month, but we finally got a chance to go see it, and this movie is Pixar's Brave. And despite what other critics have said, I actually really like this movie. I really did. I was very impressed this time. Like, now, don't get me wrong, it's not that, I mean, I've already come to terms with how I feel about CG, and if you've missed that, then it's in one of my videos. Probably the movie's looking forward to Epic and Rise of the Guardians. I'm starting to really like the aesthetics of computer graphics and computer graphic art on the computer. So while I'm looking forward to this, I've heard that a lot of critics haven't liked Brave because they didn't expect it to be enough of a Pixar movie. You know, I've heard that people didn't like the modern reference jokes in the film, that people just weren't enthused by it. Like, they really thought that it was going to be more provoking this time around. And people thought that it would have been like, I guess people's expectations were really high, but hey, don't get me wrong, my expectations were really high too, and no, it didn't meet them, but it's not that this is a bad movie at all. It's not. This is actually a really good movie. Brave is a myth given to our modern lifestyle, and I won't spoil anything because this is one of those things that you should probably see, but as far as advertising goes, it goes fantastic. It doesn't spoil anything, and I was actually genuinely surprised when I saw what happened. And maybe it's because I don't immerse myself in enough trailers and info and spoilers, but I was able to look into this movie and I didn't see what was coming. I really didn't. But I stand firm with my belief that this is a myth given to modern times, and it does it so well because it's almost a legend, if you will, in a fantasy setting in a historical site that put on screen and worked well. It's a story that can be broken down and told in very simple elements. And if it can be told simply, if it can be told in a very simple manner, like legends can be, then we can really, I guess, it's just all that more special. Now, I know this sounds weird, but the more technical something can be, I mean, the more thought-provoking it can be. But legends live off of, I guess, the mystery and the wonder of it all. The whole being able to imagine around these elements that you've been told about as a kid. You know, the stories and fairy tales that we come around. You've only been told about what happens in the story, but it's up to your brain to say, like, what can happen next, or how did this happen? And for this movie, it worked well. Like, it took its elements and it did what Pixar does best. And, I mean, as provoking goes, I have to stand by that, it had to stay fantastic. I'm sorry. It had to stay in a fantasy setting for this. I know I've been using this word around, but to use magic in a very interesting enough way, I think this movie had to do what it wanted to, in that point that I won't reveal because I want you to go see this movie. Some people were really actually, me and my wife, were really looking forward to something a little bit more controversial. Like, we were actually hoping for our main character, our Princess Merida, to change genders. I know that sounds weird in a Disney Pixar movie, but this movie tried to sell itself off as the shifting of power between gender roles. And I think it did that actually very well because in this movie, Merida and her mother are the most intelligent characters in this, and I approve. I really do, because, you know, the men in this movie, despite a king being a king, it's really the queen who gets the word in. It's the queen who really holds in tradition for everything here. Now, I can nitpick and say that that's where this movie is really fucked up, because it's because of the male-dominated society that makes the queen act traditional. And I don't think it was in this way at all. I think it was more of a personal thing rather than being a woman motive in this movie. In the interest of having Merida switch genders, like by magic, not getting too crazy here, but by magic, sort of a, as my wife put it, in a It's a Wonderful Life kind of feel. If Merida was under this spell of being a boy for like a couple of days or a week, and she had to get out of that kind of curse, and her whole life was upside down because now, you know, she didn't have to follow the ways of womanhood, basically. I mean, that's something that Pixar's never done, though. That's something that that would really turn the tables, though. But as far as fantasy goes, not too much, because it would have been interesting. It would have been very interesting for a movie in our time. But as far as a story in its own setting in historical Scotland, I think it made the better choice by going with their direction that they went in Brave. Because in Legend, you don't really hear about too many boys turning into girls and girls turning into boys. The way that Brave wants to present itself is a myth, a Scotland story brought to screen for everyone, for kids and adults alike. And yeah, a lot of people may not have agreed with the very modern setting, you know, the disputes between Merida and her mother, between teenage daughter and mother, and people may not have liked a lot of the comedy in this, but I think it went over well, because comic relief in fantasy movies, as I have explained, can be very fucking annoying. And it wasn't in this case. And I have to be thankful for the comic relief in this movie being Merida's 3 younger brothers. Didn't say a word. Perfect. Just what you need to do, because there is not enough comedy out there that relies purely on action. And sometimes we forget about that, because especially in children's movies, people think that characters need to, you know, of course they have to do stupid things to make children laugh, but also say stupid things too. Very modern reference kind of crap, you know, like being able to say like, dude, and what's up, and whatever kids are saying nowadays. Or throwing in fucking, I guess, hip-hop into your movie. Like, it's a very thin line sometimes. But in this case, Pixar knows comedy well. I trust in Pixar. These guys know what they're doing, and when they're given the right tools, they can make something very good. And I also want to throw this in too, that the short at the beginning of this movie, excellent. Pixar knows how to do its shorts really well. Even when, man, as far as Pixar and their short animated films, they're always good. Like, I think when you really give the team sort of the freedom that they need, they can come up with something really creative and really very sentimental, even. Because that's definitely what we look forward to in a Pixar film, is the short. Like the little short mini animation. Anyways, Brave. Definitely go give it a shot. If you want to see a beautiful movie, it's got it for you. If you want comedy, it's actually got a really good flow to it. I was chuckling at times, my wife was laughing at times, and it wasn't too much. We were still immersed in the story. It didn't draw away from anything. Sometimes we're on the edge of our seat, and sometimes we just wanted to take in the world the world of Scotland that they built for us. So definitely give this one a shot, because Pixar, you know, people think that they've been going in the wrong direction, and people think that they need to try harder. But they're only going to do that with support, rather than criticism.